Well, welcome back, and now we are moving into our third of four short videos looking at a introduction to frames, and we're continuing to look at this idea of reframing, taking a situation, looking at it from a different perspective, and coming up with a different solution to that particular problem. A couple of notes on this. First of all, it's not easy. If it was easy, lots of people would be doing it. So it's difficult. It requires changing your mental model or having a flexible mental model that allows you to adapt to the situation and see things, look at things from a very different perspective. You've probably all heard the saying, if every problem is a nail if the only tool you have to solve those problems is a hammer. I think I just butchered that saying, but you know what I mean. Let me give you a practical example of this. When we were moving into the first phases of the Afghan War, the President Bush had announced we were moving to effects-based warfare. And in effects-based warfare, you're taking the instruments of national power, military and informational and diplomatic and economic, and linking them together into a holistic approach to solving the problem. Well, sounds great, and the announcement went great. But actually, at the time the announcement was made, there was no software, there were no command and control systems or information systems that really supported effect-based warfare. And so the local commander on the field in Afghanistan turned to the field officers, said, look, we need something to track and link together all of these instruments of national power. And the officer's slot looked at their arsenal of tools that they knew how to use very, very well, and they came up with one tool. That would be PowerPoint. That's the only tool they knew. They weren't programmers, they were Army officers. So they built a 500 slide PowerPoint presentation that was hyperlinked together. It took 2 people all day to keep it up to date and to link everything together so as to bring together the instruments of national power. And that went on for probably about 2 months. It didn't take very long before they figured out this really was not the right solution. And I and a couple others got involved in building a software platform with a modern database and link weighting and very different approach to solve this problem. But again, reframing is hard. It's not that those Army officers were unintelligent. Actually, they were extremely bright. But they only had one tool in their arsenal. They were not able to reframe the problem, and that led to all sorts of difficulties. Some may say even on at a comedic level. All right, let's go back and look at our 4 frames again. Remember, we were talking about these frames, and this is actually a exhibit from your course textbook. And you look at that structural frame, and the metaphor, if you will, for it is a factory or a machine. And you're looking at these, different roles and goals and policies and strategic plans and organization charts within and standards and guidelines within a organization. Within that human resource frame, you're looking at it from the metaphor, if you will, of a family. The needs and skills and relationships of people and how to either maximize those or minimize the disruption by treating people quite differently. The political frame, metaphor is the jungle. Conflict is natural within organizations, and conflict is natural within organizations. And that leads to this necessary set of mechanisms for allocating power and resources within a group. And then finally, the idea of the theater of an organization, and how do we build meaning and ritual and ceremony and stories and heroes into our various divisions and companies. So looking at these 4 frames, that's what we're going to focus on coming forward. But what I want to do now is provide one last example. It's comedic genius from the 1950s, Abott and Costello. The name of their skit is Who's on First? And you probably have seen it before, but if not, go back and revisit it, or even if you have seen it, revisit it from the perspective that each of these gentlemen are working from a different frame. Each of these gentlemen are using a different perspective to try to solve a common problem of communications. So go back and look at that. This will conclude the third short video associated with an introduction to frames and reframing. And when we come back, we'll start looking at, in the next video, common fallacies and characteristics of organization learning. But before we do that, take a break, take a pause, go listen and watch Abott and Costello from the course website.